We are on this lesson 6, and we are going to learn about supporting evidence and giving examples today with you, Asilbek Kurbanov. So, 6.1, what is supporting evidence? The writing task asks you to give reasons why for your answer, and you include and relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. As we saw in the lesson 2, it is important to see the evidence you provide in your essay as the reason you believe to be true. Supporting evidence helps the reader to understand your main argument and shows your thinking, but attempts to do this cause problems even at band 7, where candidates may overgeneralize and or supporting ideas may lack focus. On a band 9, our main ideas relevant, extended, and supported. And it's not until the band 9 and that they are fully extended and well supported, clearly providing relevant and focused support for your arguments is a high level skill. The fact that supporting evidence is not mentioned about at band 6 and below it's often interpreted to mean that you must include some examples to score that band 7. While this is true to a certain extent, the way in which this is done often continues to result in a score of band 6 or 6.5, which shows there is a problem with this advice. We will begin by looking at typical band 6 examples and why these often do not act as a supporting evidence. 6.2 Common problems with examples. Problem 1, template filling and invented examples. In many Band 6 essays, each paragraph contains a separate sentence with an example. These are often invented statistics that sound odd, and they rarely help to explain or support the main idea in the paragraph. Such examples are provided mechanically, often at the end of the paragraph, as though the writer is thinking, now I need to write example that rather than how can I prove this point. Following paragraph was written by a native speaker who recently contacted me. The essay was about helping older workers to get a job. Do you think the example supports or explains the main idea? To tackle this long-term problem, government should provide a corporate tax incentive when they hire experienced people. That is to say that a lower income tax on the profits of companies would allow employees to hire the right people to perform the right job without the need to lower HR fees. For example, a similar initiative was launched by the United States government in San Francisco, California, which has resulted in Tesla's rarely corporate taxes to reduce by 35%. To tackle this long-term problem, governments should provide a corporate tax incentive when they hire experienced people. That is to say that a lower experience tax on the profits of companies would allow employers to hire the right people to perform the right job without the need to lower HER fees. For example, a similar initiative was launched by the United States government in San Francisco, California, which has resulted in Tesla's yearly corporate taxes to reduce by 35%. There were some grammatical issues in this essay. The native speakers often use patterns common in spoken language, but the main problems are in coherence and cohesion and task response. The main ideas are inadequately developed and are unclear. How does lower income tax help companies to hire the right people? What is the relevance of lower HIR fees? The example provided doesn't help the reader to understand any of these points. Now, nor the writer has concluded the government should provide a corporate tax incentive when they hire experienced staff. Mm, the second paragraph also followed the same pattern. Two sentences that are not logically connected, followed by a very clear invented example. The writer confirmed that he had been taught taught to use the same template approach in every essay. As a result, the last sentence looks like an example, but it doesn't support the previous idea. It does not perform the function of an example. Key idea: adding a sentence which an invented example will not provide the supporting evidence for your ideas or persuade the reader to believe them. Problem two: examples that are not examples. In many essays, I see the examples are not examples at all. They are often simply a repetition of the previous idea. On the other hand, if good transportation is provided to the public, they will travel by public transport. For example, if fast metro trains are provided to people who go to work and students who go to schools or colleges in the morning. In addition, there are some buses on the different routes that cover all the important destinations such as downtown, hospitals, schools, factories area. An example of this is in London, people prefer to travel by buses because buses are fast and they go to famous places. This paragraph is another good example of why template approach will not work. There are cohesive devices here in bold that have been used as a framework for the paragraph, but they are not logically connected to the ideas in between. As a result, ideas presented as examples, but they do not perform this function. They do not help explaining the support the main writer's other point. Claim. If a good transportation is provided to the public, they will travel by public transport. Example of this: if fast metro trains are provided to the people who go to work and students who go to school or colleges in the morning. If there are buses on different routes that cover all important destinations such as downtown hospitals and factories area. In London, people prefer to travel buses because buses are fast and they go to famous places of the city. Mapping out the ideas like this shows that the examples do not support the claims being made, and that writing, for example, is not enough. What follows is this much provide evidence to support the previous idea like this. If good public transportation is provided, people will use it. For example, cities like London, Tokyo, and Singapore have excellent underground trains that are filled with people traveling to work, school, or college every day. In addition, if there are buses on different routes that cover important destinations such as hospitals and factories, these would also no doubt be used in preference to private cars, reducing the traffic as a result. In this version, the connecting phrases are used because they are needed and because they fit this argument. As a result, they are effective signposts helping the reader to follow the development of the argument and showing how ideas are connected. Key idea: if you begin with a template of the cohesive devices and then attempt to fill in the gaps between them, as a result, they will not be successful. Remember, your ideas and your argument must become first. Problem 3: using a trivial idea to support a serious and extreme conclusion. In lesson 2, I referred to an argument made in an essay discussing whether countries are becoming more and more similar because the people are able to buy the same products anywhere in the world. In this essay, the writers used the examples of famous Spanish fashion store called Zara. Some people may say that this is definitely a positive trend because it helps them to save time and money. This is because nowadays it's no longer necessary to buy a plane ticket and to spend 5 hours to get the US to buy a Zara handbag. In my experience, this mindset genuinely reflects the human nature since many of us have tendency to think about our own interests first. He went on to argue that on the societal level, the results may be catastrophic if this is the case. Perhaps the worst case scenario is that the global tourism industry may collapse. The reasoning in this argument can be summarized as follows. This is a positive trend because it saves us time and money. Example, we'll no longer need to fly to the US to buy a Zara handbag. Human nature, people think of our interests first. The global tourism industry may collapse. Mapping the ideas in this way shows the lack of logic in reaching this conclusion. The example doesn't support the conclusion that the global tourism may collapse, and it is rather trivial in comparison. Another sample essay I found online discussed the topic of clothing now being the same everywhere in the world. The essay argued that people dressing the same everywhere in the world leads to the population of rural areas, but on the other hand, it can also help solve world problems. If you find yourself reaching the extreme conclusion like this about a rather mundane topic, then you are not applying the critical thinking needed to produce a clear, well developed argument with focused, relevant supporting evidence. Key idea. If your main ideas and conclusions are extreme, but your examples are trivial, then they will not support your argument. Apply critical thinking to produce the right evidence for the clear development arguments. Thus, 3.3 and other ways to supporting your ideas. As we have seen, your main ideas and points are often broad and general, while your supporting evidence is more specific to demonstrate. Look at these two paragraphs from this previous lesson. Paragraph 1. There are several reasons why the government collects taxes. Firstly, the money raised can be used to build new roads or public buildings. Secondly, existing infrastructure such as schools and hospitals can be updated or repaired. Finally, these funds are needed to pay the salaries of the government workers, including the firefighters and the police. Thus, taxes help to improve the community while also making it safer. Paragraph 2. In many big cities, the population exceeds the number of flats and houses available, which means that many people do not have anywhere to live. This causes the several problems. Firstly, in it can put pressure on local charities who have to find food and shelter for the homeless. If the government does not step into people who are struggling and financially, then this puts even more stress on community programs and the causes homelessness to rise even further. In the accommodation, like a lack of accommodation means that house prices and rents remain very high. Thus, housing problems have an impact on everyone in the community. On your worksheet, separate the ideas in the paragraphs into general ideas and the specific evidence. Write the general ideas in the large city cycles and the evidence in the rectangular boxes. I have some boxes. Some have been down for you. Click to here to see. Click to here to see answer one. There's no answer. Click to here to man. This is like a point to notice. In almost every case, the ideas were supported without using a separate sentence beginning with, for example, the supporting evidence is relevant and focused. Because of this, it supports the general ideas well. For variety, we can either begin with the supporting evidence and then draw a conclusion from this. These funds are used to pay the salaries of all the government workers, including firefighters and the police. Thus, taxes help improve the community while also making it safer. Or we can make the point and show our evidence for this by giving an example. Taxes help improve the community while also making it safer. For example, the funds are used to pay salaries of the government workers such as firefighters and the police. Although you don't need to begin a sentence with for example, sometimes it's both helpful and necessary. Look at these claims and I made in previous lesson and the examples I gave to support them. Language note: in academic writing or when writing about a serious issue, we often begin by defining the key terms. This can help to explain the context for the ideas in your argument. For example, if you are writing about the topic of the success, you could begin by defining this word means to you and or in your culture, which may be different to the examiner's interpretation of the word. Sometimes we rephrase an idea in order to make it clearer. For example, in the first lesson we wrote, many cities have more people than houses. This means that many people do not have anywhere to live. um, I used these examples to show that my claims were true, but also try to persuade to take my claims seriously. Putting each example into a separate sentence also helped me to highlight it. An even more important point is that the writing of this book began with the many examples people have sent to me over the last 9 years. I looked carefully at this evidence and thought, what can we learn from this? I did not think of some points I wanted to make and then invent examples. You must take same approach in your writing. Key idea: include an example to make it clear and help to show that the argument and the point you are making is a valid one. Finish your paragraphs with a general point rather than with an example. Extra practice: look back through your previous essays and find some examples you have used. Ask yourself the following questions and identify any problems you have. Do you tend to use examples in a mechanical way? Example always at the end of the paragraph. Did you invent your examples? Is the examiner more trivial than the main idea or conclusion is supporting? Is your right example really just repeating an idea? So on your worksheet, write out some of your examples along the way, along with the idea that they are supporting. Reverse sentences, and I did in example A above. In other words, write the example first without the words. For example, begin your next sentence with thus and thus. Oh my goodness. Thus, ask yourself the following questions to check whether your examples are acting as good, focused, supporting evidence. Is the example relevant to the main idea of your paragraph and to the essay question? Does the essay, does the point you are making follow or unlogical from your example? If not, what logical conclusion can you draw from your example? What does your example show? Is this relevant to the main idea of your paragraph or to the essay question? Try to decide if your problem is with the main ideas and the points you are making, the examples you have used to support them, or a combination of two. Thank you.